He didn't just sleep with my best friend, he forged my name, stole my empire, and smiled while burying me alive. So I vanished. But I didn't cry. I calculated. And when I returned, I didn't knock. I owned the building. No. He watches me from rock bottom, begging for mercy, while I sign contracts with the same hand he tried to erase. They say when your life falls apart, you hear it. A crash, a scream, a bang. But mine started unraveling in silence. The kind of silence that hums underneath chandeliers and luxury. Quiet, heavy, dangerous. In Rosebridge, I was known as a woman who had it all. CEO whisperer. Investment darling. The woman behind the Bennett Group's rise. Though officially that title belonged to my fiancé Lucas Bennett. Let's just say he wore the crown, but I built the throne. We were the ultimate power couple, the it pair of every magazine spread. He had the jawline and political charm. I had the brains and a Rolex more accurate than half the advisors in the city. We were goals, or so people thought. And then there was Isabelle Monroe. My best friend since grad school. Stunning, stylish, a marketing maven with an eye for luxury and an appetite for headlines. She was my ride or die. Or so I thought. Between the three of us, we ran Rosebridge like our personal playground. Lucas on deals, Isabelle on media, and me, quietly pulling every string like the calm at the center of a storm. Our engagement party was just a week away. The venue was paid in full, florals picked out, and my gown, custom stitched in Milan, had just arrived. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Lucas had been distant for weeks. Smiling too much. Touching too little. Canceling dinner plans with urgent board meetings, and working late nights from home. Though oddly enough he stopped sending those cute selfies from the office. And Isabelle? She'd grown vague. Flighty. Overly curious about my whereabouts. She even started complimenting me more. And trust me, Isabelle only layered on praise when she was hiding something under it. But I didn't let suspicion win. Not yet. Because the woman I was, Vivian Carter, didn't do jealousy. We did strategy, grace, and curated restraint. Sass was my second language, but insecurity? I didn't know her. Until that afternoon. I'd just wrapped up a meeting at the Callaway Hotel to finalize the layout for the engagement reception. The planner asked if Lucas would be joining. I smiled politely and lied. He's caught up in a deal. On the way home, I picked up his favorite coffee from Café du Lys. Almond cappuccino, extra hot, 2 shots of espresso. Old habits die hard. I remember the way the elevator hummed as it ascended to the penthouse. Smooth, elegant, like the life I thought I had. When I stepped into the apartment, I didn't announce myself. I was planning to surprise him. Instead, I got the surprise. The moment I crossed the threshold, I knew something was off. The air was warm, thick with a scent that wasn't mine. Citrus and musk. Not my perfume. Definitely not Lucas's cologne either. At first, I heard only the faint buzz of city traffic outside our panoramic windows. Then sound. Soft. Breathless. Feminine. A laugh. My body stilled. It was Isabelle's laugh. That laugh. That fake, girlish flutter she used when charming investors or flirting with Lucas after 2 glasses of wine. But this wasn't public flirting. This was private. Intimate. Laced with pleasure. Another sound followed. A low groan. Male. Familiar. And I didn't move. Couldn't. My hands gripped the paper coffee tray so tightly one of the lids popped off. Hot espresso spilled onto my wrist, but I didn't even flinch. Instead I walked. Not fast. Not frantic. Just forward. Each step echoing like thunder on marble as I neared our bedroom. The door was cracked open. I pushed it gently. And there they were. Lucas shirtless, head thrown back. Isabelle beneath him, tangled in my silk sheets. The same sheets I had monogrammed with our initials last Christmas. She moaned something I didn't catch. His hand was on her thigh. Her nails were digging into his back. And just like that, the illusion shattered. The power couple. The loyalty. The 20-something girl who once told me she'd never hurt me because, "You're my person, Viv." Gone. All of it. I didn't scream. I didn't gasp. I didn't even breathe. I just stood there. At the edge of the life I built. Watching 2 people I trusted burn it down in real time. Lucas didn't see me. Isabelle didn't hear me. Not yet. But they would. Oh, they would. And when they did, when Lucas turned and locked eyes with me, when Isabelle's lips froze in a half-kiss and her face went ghost white, I would remember this moment. Because betrayal has a soundtrack. It's not a scream. It's not a slap. It's the sound of silence before the storm. And darling, I was the storm. Lucas saw me first. I could tell by the way his spine snapped straight and his eyes widened in horror. His hand, the same one that used to brush hair from my cheek, instinctively yanked the sheet up over Isabelle's bare body, as if covering the mess would erase it. Vivian, he choked. Oh, now he had words. I stood motionless in the doorway, espresso still dripping down my wrist, the cup crushed in my grip like it had a pulse of its own. Isabelle twisted to look, and her face, Lord. If shame had a face, it would look exactly like hers at that moment. Wide-eyed, red-cheeked, and scrambling to wrap herself in the sheet like it wasn't already too late. She whispered my name. Viv. I finally moved. With slow, deliberate steps I entered the room. Every click of my heels on the marble floor sounded like a countdown. To what, I wasn't sure yet. An explosion, maybe. A funeral, definitely. The burial of a friendship and whatever love I thought I had. I looked around my bedroom, the one I spent months designing. Neutral tones. Soft lighting. The throw pillows that Lucas used to tease me about, now scattered on the floor like casualties. I just got these sheets dry cleaned, I said, voice light, almost amused. Egyptian cotton, 1,200 thread count. Do you have any idea how hard it is to remove betrayal from fabric? Neither of them answered. I turned to Isabelle. Her hair was a mess, but not the cute beach waves mess. No, this was the kind of mess that comes from rolling in a bed that doesn't belong to you. Out of curiosity, I asked, was this a one-time thing, or did you two just stop caring whether I found out? Lucas tried to speak, but I cut him off with a raised hand. I'm not interested in fiction, Lucas. Save your breath. He stood there, half-covered, flustered. I had seen that face before, at investor meetings when a deal went south. But this wasn't a negotiation he could charm his way out of. You've been so distant lately, he started. Always busy, always working. I didn't plan for this to happen. Of course not, I snapped. You never plan for betrayal. It just slips in between meetings and late-night texts, right? He sighed and looked away. I needed something real, he muttered. You were always somewhere else. Always thinking 5 steps ahead. Isabelle, she listened. She made me feel seen. Oh, I said, placing the crushed coffee on the nightstand. So this was about you feeling invisible while I was building your empire. How tragic. Isabelle, to her credit, at least had the decency to flinch. She finally spoke, her voice soft and wobbly. Vivian, I didn't mean to hurt you. Guess it happened. We didn't plan it. Stop saying that, I snapped, turning to her. You didn't plan it, but you sure as hell repeated it. Don't insult me by calling this an accident. Her lip quivered. I stepped closer. You were my best friend, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. You held my hand when Lucas proposed. You helped me pick my wedding dress. And now here you are, playing house in my bed. I was jealous, she blurted. You always had everything, Viv. The business, the brains, the perfect life. I was always the sidekick. I stared at her for a long beat. You weren't my sidekick, Isabelle. You were my sister. And you burned it all, for this. I glanced at Lucas with a look of utter contempt. A man who couldn't handle a strong woman, so he downgraded to someone more manageable? Lucas bristled. You don't have to be cruel. I turned to him, letting out a sharp laugh. Oh honey, if you think this is cruel, wait until you read the NDA clause I slipped into our partnership agreement. That shut him up. Vivian, he said, stepping closer. Please. Let's talk. I stepped back. We are done talking. But we have history. We have wreckage, I corrected. Not history. I walked over to the closet, pulled out my weekender bag. One I always kept packed in case of emergency business trips. Turns out it was perfect for a different kind of departure. Viv, don't walk away, Isabelle pleaded. I zipped the bag with a calmness I didn't feel. Oh, I'm not walking. I'm strutting. Lucas moved to block the door. Can we please just sit down and talk like adults? I tilted my head, narrowed my eyes. Sure. But before that, quick question. Do adults usually screw their fiancé's best friend, or is that just something you two trendsetters do? He stepped aside. Thought so, I said. I took one last look around the apartment. My apartment. The place I decorated with purpose and love. The place I planned to raise children in. The place I just lost in a matter of minutes. Then I turned to Lucas. This was your chance, Lucas. Your moment to be more than what people expected. But instead you became exactly what I always feared you'd be: predictable, weak, forgettable. And to Isabelle, I hope the betrayal was worth it. I really do. Because I promise you whatever comes next won't be. I walked out the door with my bag slung over my shoulder and my heart split into shards. But my spine? Straight as ever. Down the elevator, out through the lobby into the cold air of Rosebridge. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I opened my phone and did something that shocked even me. I deleted every photo of us. And then I texted my assistant. Clear my schedule. Indefinitely. Because in that moment I knew exactly what I needed to do next. Disappear. And rebuild. Not just a life, but a legacy. One he couldn't touch. Disappearing wasn't nearly as glamorous as it sounds. It wasn't running down an airport runway in a trench coat or changing my name in a smoky casino with a mysterious smile. It was quieter than that. More deliberate. Like ash settling after a fire. I left Rosebridge the next morning, no press conference, no scandalous goodbye. Just a one-way train ticket to Silver Hollow Bay, a sleepy little coastal town known for two things: overpriced saltwater taffy and a population of people who didn't give a damn who you used to be. Which suited me just fine. The first few days were a blur of silence, wind, and sea air. I rented a weathered little cottage with creaky floorboards and a clawfoot tub older than my career. There was a garden out back, mostly weeds and forgotten tomato vines, and a stubborn seagull that tried to claim the porch swing as his throne. It wasn't home, but it was safe, and for now that was enough. I turned off all news alerts, logged out of every social media account, and ditched my designer wardrobe for jeans, white tees, and oversized cardigans. My phone stayed off most of the time except for the burner line I used for basic things: groceries, utilities, and the occasional freelancing gig under the alias Vera Hart. Vivian Carter, power strategist and media darling? She was gone. At least that was the plan. But the thing about being a woman who built empires is, the hunger doesn't die just because your heart broke. It simmers. It waits. And eventually it begins to whisper. Build again. It was on a Tuesday, I remember, because the seagull had pooped on my welcome mat for the third day in a row, that I first heard about Crosstech Ventures. I had walked into a local cafe called Driftwood Beans, where the coffee was mediocre but the Wi-Fi was fast. I sat near the window, scrolling freelance listings with one hand and sipping a lukewarm chai with the other when a quiet argument caught my attention from the next table over. Two men in tailored suits were whispering about a pitch gone wrong. Something about market intelligence, data gaps, and a lack of strategy. Damian's going to kill us, one of them muttered. That name, Damian, stirred something. Not recognition. Just curiosity. I looked over, catching enough of their screens to realize they were trying to salvage a proposal for a mid-sized private equity firm. I knew that layout. I knew that mess. And without thinking, I scribbled a quick flow correction on a napkin, walked over and placed it between them. Next time, don't open with projected margins. Lead with the story. Always. They stared at me like I'd just dropped a grenade. I smiled, turned, and walked out with my half-empty chai. 2 hours later, my burner phone rang. Miss Hart, a deep voice asked. Yes. This is Damian Cross. And just like that, the whisper became a spark. We met that Friday at a no-frills office above an art gallery. No plaque, no glass walls, no flashy receptionist. Just a matte black door and a man with sharp eyes who looked like he didn't smile often, or need to. Damian Cross was not what I expected. Younger than I'd imagined, but with a weathered intensity. His suit was clean but not flashy. His presence was still but commanding. You're not what I expected either, he said as I stepped into the room. Do you usually expect women with coffee-stained sneakers and oversized cardigans to fix your pitch decks? He smirked slightly. Not usually. But I'm not usually proven wrong. His office was all clean lines and empty walls. No trophies. No clutter. Just a sleek laptop, a half-finished bottle of scotch, and a file with my alias typed on it. You do know Vera Hart isn't my real name, right? I asked. He met my gaze calmly. I figured. Anyone who rewrites a pitch in 15 seconds and nails every flaw in the deck isn't some bored freelancer. I gave him a tight smile. Then why call me? Because I don't care who you were. I care what you can do. That surprised me. Most men like him, power players, always wanted to own you before they valued you. But Damian wasn't playing chess. He was building something. Quietly. Strategically. And he didn't want loyalty, he wanted results. We talked for over an hour. Well, mostly he talked. About Crosstech's expansion plans. A biotech arm. A flailing digital media subsidiary. A desire to restructure quietly before going public in 18 months. He needed someone sharp, discreet, and untraceable. He needed me. I accepted the consulting contract the next day. And just like that, I began to rebuild. Working with Crosstech was like stepping into a high-stakes poker game where no one trusted anyone, and yet the chips were real. I operated remotely under layers of encrypted emails and burner calls. My official title was external analyst, but within 3 weeks I'd rewritten 3 strategies, restructured 1 portfolio, and identified a mole in their investor list. Damian never complimented me directly. But he started seeing me on confidential reports. Asking my opinion first. Adjusting his tone. And every time he did, I filed it away as a small, silent win. One night, I sent him a report detailing a quiet acquisition opportunity that could double his digital arm's value. A few minutes later, he called, no greeting, just a low voice saying, "How the hell did you find that?" "Trade secret," I replied, lounging on my porch swing with a blanket over my legs and a glass of red wine in hand. "Either you used to run $1 billion fund," he said, "or you're the ghost of Warren Buffett." I laughed. "The first real one in weeks." "You'll never know," I said, sipping my wine. "But I'm definitely better dressed." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'll wire the funds in the morning." "Good work." That was Damian. Direct. No frills. The opposite of Lucas in every way. Lucas would have demanded credit, plastered my work across investor calls like it was his idea. Damian, he executed. And slowly something strange began to happen. I started to feel powerful again. Not the kind of power that comes from attention or applause, but the kind that blooms quietly inside your chest when you realize you still have it. The mind, the edge, the fire. I wasn't just healing. I was plotting. Because one morning, while reviewing a media acquisition file, I saw a name I hadn't expected. Bennett Group Holdings. They were faltering. Their stock had dipped 27%. Their PR arm was in shambles. Internal audits were being leaked to journalists. And guess who was running point? Isabelle Monroe. Still clinging to relevance like a kitten clawing at a silk curtain. I stared at the report for a long time, heart steady, mind racing. Then I closed the file. I wasn't ready. Not yet. But I would be. One night, weeks later, Damian and I were reviewing projections at a rooftop bar after a private investor dinner. The skyline glistened behind him, the ocean breeze cutting through the heat. "You know," he said, nursing his drink, "you never did tell me why someone with your talent is hiding out in Silver Hollow Bay." I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in a long time I didn't feel the urge to deflect. I swirled the last of my wine and said, "Because sometimes when your world burns down, the smartest thing to do is watch the flames. And then you start building again with the ashes." He stared at me for a beat, then nodded. "Sounds like you're almost ready." "Ready for what?" He smiled, rare and unreadable. "To stop hiding. No one sees a queen when she's crawling through the rubble. They only see her when she rises, crown polished, enemies trembling. But here's the secret they forget. She's most dangerous when she's still quiet." And quiet was exactly what I needed. Over the next month in Silver Hollow Bay, I perfected invisibility. Still consulting for Crosstech, still cashing hefty wires from Damian, still making it look like I was just a brilliant recluse with a knack for fixing broken empires. But inside, I was watching, and plotting, and calculating every move like I was playing chess against the devil, with Isabelle and Lucas as my pawns. It started when I saw the second article. Bennett Group faces investor exodus amid PR chaos. It was small, buried on the 3rd page of a digital finance blog. Most people would have scrolled past it. But not me. Because I knew those buzzwords: internal misalignment, leadership uncertainty, delayed funding rounds. Translation: they were bleeding. Silently. Fully. Publicly, they still held it together with press fluff and smiling interviews. But behind the scenes, they were running out of duct tape. And that's when the idea came. What if I didn't just destroy them? What if I owned them? It took 3 days to set up the fake name, Evelyn Langley, complete with a quiet offshore trust shell corporations, and an email address that looked like it belonged to a 70-year-old heiress with a thing for antique clocks and dividend yield. Within the week, Evelyn had purchased 2.8% of Bennett Group's Class B shares through a blind investment consortium. Nothing major. Just enough to get invited to the next shareholder call. I didn't tell Damian. Not because I didn't trust him, but because this wasn't about Crosstech. This was about me and the reckoning they didn't know was coming. Instead, I played my part. Showed up to meetings. Delivered strategies. Shot down mergers that didn't make sense. Meanwhile, at night I watched Isabelle. Her interviews were painful to endure. Her sentences were all glitter, no substance. Phrases like disruptive synergy and emotional market pivots, tossed around like she'd swallowed a TED Talk playlist. Lucas was less visible. Probably hiding. Or sulking. Or maybe realizing that building a kingdom on a woman's back doesn't work when that woman walks away and takes the blueprint with her. So I waited. Because timing isn't just important in war. It is the war. Damian noticed the shift. "You're sharper lately," he said one morning over espresso. "More focused. Like you're playing a game I can't see." I shrugged. "Maybe I'm just done pretending I want peace." He studied me for a moment. "You remind me of someone," he said finally. "Let me guess, your dangerous ex?" He smiled faintly. "No. Myself. Right before I left the military. That caught me off guard. I didn't know you served. Most people don't. I like it that way. Why'd you leave?" He held my gaze. Too many leaders making decisions they didn't bleed for. I understood that in my bones. By mid-month, Evelyn Langley owned 6% of Bennett Group. Still under the radar, still quiet. But now, I had leverage. I called into my first shareholder meeting with a digitally scrambled voice and a proxy representative who sounded like she spent her weekends knitting socks for her grandkids. Lucas was there, voice tight, energy strained. He presented projections with the confidence of a man duct taping his suit together backstage. Isabelle chimed in occasionally, her voice falsely bright. They didn't recognize the name. They didn't see me yet. Good. Let them stay blind. Back at Crosstech, Damian invited me to dinner. Not work-related. Not formal. Just dinner. I wore black slacks, a fitted blazer and my hair in a soft wave. Nothing flashy. Just enough to remind myself that I was still that woman, even if most days I felt like a ghost. We met at a quiet place overlooking the cliffs. The kind of spot with white candles, linen napkins and a wine list longer than my list of enemies. He pulled out my chair. Old-fashioned. Kind. Dangerous. "You know," he said after the second glass, "I've worked with analysts from Dubai to Singapore. None of them think like you do." "Because I'm not thinking about quarterly profits," I replied. "I'm thinking about chess moves." He grinned. "And who's your opponent?" I looked at him, then away. Someone who thought I'd never play the game. There was a pause. Just long enough for him to consider pushing, but wise enough not to. "Whoever they are," he said, lifting his glass, "they're in trouble." I clinked my glass to his. "Oh," I said, eyes gleaming, "they're already doomed. They just haven't noticed the fire beneath their throne." 2 days later, a leaked email from Bennett Group's marketing head surfaced online. Isabelle had tried to blackball a competitor by planting false stories. It backfired. Hard. Investors pulled out. Press swarmed. Social media caught on like wildfire. And Evelyn Langley? She quietly acquired another 4%. Just like that, I held 10% of the company. One more move and I'd have board privileges. And then, my darlings, the curtain would rise. Late one night, Damian called. No business. Just a quiet voice saying, "I saw the news. Isabelle's unraveling." I didn't respond immediately. "Do you think she knows it's you?" he asked. "She will," I said. "But not yet." He paused. "Do you want her to?" I sipped my tea, standing barefoot by the open window, wind teasing the hem of my robe. "I don't want recognition," I said. "I want silence. The kind that follows collapse. The kind that makes them remember." "You sound like a woman with a vendetta." "I am a woman," I said, "who got tired of swallowing smoke just to keep their fire burning." He didn't say anything for a while. Then softly, "For what it's worth. I hope your fire consumes everything that ever hurt you." That night I dreamed of boardrooms and firelight. Of Lucas, pale and shaken, reading my name on an ownership file. Of Isabelle, scrambling to spin stories while the ground vanished beneath her. And of me, seated at the head of the table they once denied me. Not as a guest. As the queen. The first time I saw Isabelle's face on the news after leaving Rosebridge, I almost laughed. She was standing in front of the Bennett Group headquarters, wearing a blazer that looked like it had been borrowed from Lucas's closet and an expression that screamed, "Please, someone believe I'm still relevant." The reporter's headline read, "Bennett Group struggles as Isabelle Monroe assumes PR lead." Isabelle. The girl who once cried over chipped nail polish was now trying to keep an empire from burning to the ground. Life really does have a twisted sense of humor. But I didn't just want humor. I wanted strategy. And I had it. A week earlier I'd quietly sent a collection of files to a journalist friend. Someone who owed me a favor after I saved his career from a libel lawsuit 2 years ago. The files contained evidence of Isabelle's creative bookkeeping. Let's just say she had a talent for rerouting company marketing funds to personal accounts for things like luxury spa memberships and a suspiciously expensive diamond bracelet. Within 24 hours the story broke. PR head Isabelle Monroe accused of misappropriation of funds. Cue outrage. Cue investors calling for transparency. Cue Lucas trying to do damage control with that fake earnestness he perfected years ago. I watched the chaos unfold from my little coastal cottage, a steaming mug of tea in one hand and my laptop in the other. The best part? Isabelle didn't even suspect me. Not yet. She blamed corporate sabotage, as if some rogue assistant was out to ruin her. Meanwhile, Lucas probably thought it was just bad luck, or maybe one of his competitors smelling blood. But I knew better. This was me. Quiet, precise, deliberate. Like smoke slipping under a locked door. 3 days after the leak, Lucas held a press conference. He tried to flash his signature grin, but the cameras picked up the strain around his eyes. "Bennett Group stands by our leadership," he said. "We are investigating these allegations and..." Boom. Halfway through his speech another leak dropped. This time an old email thread between Lucas and Isabelle discussing how to push me out of the company after the engagement party. The thread included gems like, "She's too smart for her own good," and "We can sideline her after the wedding." It was delicious watching the reporters' faces as the notifications hit their phones. Lucas froze on stage, his mouth halfway open like someone had hit pause on his brain. The questions flew at him like darts. "Mr. Bennett, did you plan to remove Ms. Carter from leadership? Was this a coordinated effort between you and Ms. Monroe? Are the allegations of fund misuse connected to this internal dispute?" I turned off the TV before it ended. I'd seen enough. It was working. "You're smiling," Damian said that evening during our conference call. "Am I?" I replied innocently. "You look like someone who just watched their enemies trip over their own shoelaces." I smirked. "Maybe I just appreciate a good stumble." He leaned back in his chair on the video call, his sharp eyes glinting. "Vivian, whatever game you're playing, you're winning. Just be careful not to get caught in the fire." "Don't worry," I said, sipping my wine. "I'm fireproof." The next move wasn't about Isabelle. It was about Lucas. I dug through old investor memos, things he and I wrote together back when I was still building his empire like an idiot in love. And I found something golden. A pattern of overinflated projections and forged signatures. Did Lucas commit outright fraud? Not quite. Did he bend the truth enough to make the board sweat? Absolutely. I sent the documents to a trusted contact at an independent finance watchdog group. They were thrilled. "Exclusive tip," I told them. "No names needed." By the next morning, Bennett Group stock had dropped another 15%. Investors were calling for heads. Isabelle went into hiding for 2 days, and Lucas was reportedly unavailable for comment. I sat on my porch swing watching the sun dip into the ocean and whispered to myself, and this is just the warm-up. A week later, Damian asked me to attend a private tech summit in Rosebridge. "I need someone who can speak to strategic restructuring," he said. "Besides, you've been hiding long enough." I wasn't sure if it was the challenge or the sheer thrill of walking back into Rosebridge on my terms, but I said yes. I arrived at the summit in a tailored cream suit, heels clicking like punctuation marks, hair cascading in soft waves. I looked like the woman who once ran boardrooms, but sharper now. Colder. And wouldn't you know it? Lucas and Isabelle were there. The look on their faces when they saw me, Priceless. Lucas froze mid-sentence during a conversation with investors, his jaw going slack. Isabelle nearly dropped her glass of champagne. I gave them a polite smile, the kind of smile that says, yes, I'm alive and yes, I'm better than ever. I didn't speak to them that night. I didn't need to. My presence alone was enough to rattle their carefully crafted facade. But Damian? He noticed the tension. Over dinner, he leaned closer and murmured, "That couple over there looks like they've seen a ghost." "They have," I said, sipping my wine. "And she's haunting them." 2 days after the summit, I launched the final wave of my smoke and mirrors plan, a carefully timed social media storm. A well-curated blog post appeared on a popular business site titled, "The Woman Behind Bennett Group's Rise, and the Betrayal That Nearly Broke Her." It didn't name names. Didn't have to. It was written in third person based on anonymous sources, and it painted me as a brilliant strategist wronged by an ungrateful partner. The comments section exploded. Suddenly, Lucas and Isabelle weren't power players. They were the villains of a very public story. That night, Lucas called. I stared at his name flashing on my burner phone for a full minute before answering. "Vivian," he said, his voice strained. "We need to talk." "We really don't," I said. "Please," he begged. "Everything's falling apart. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand," I cut in. "You built your empire on my back, Lucas. Now you're choking on it." "Viv, I made a mistake." I smiled into the silence. "No, darling. You made a choice. And so did I." Then I hung up. There's a specific kind of silence that follows a well-placed bomb. Not the chaotic kind. No, that comes later. First, there's the pause. The stunned, hollow moment when people realize everything they believed might be a lie. And as far as bombs go, I just dropped a nuclear one. It started with a leaked video, an internal security recording from inside Bennett Group's executive suite. I didn't leak it myself, but I knew exactly who did. An intern. Someone Lucas had once humiliated in a board meeting for not knowing her place. Her flash drive ended up in the right inbox. The footage wasn't scandalous in the usual sense. No sex, no violence. Just words. But words can cut deeper than blades. In the video, Lucas paced back and forth, agitated. Isabelle sat on the leather couch, arms crossed, clearly annoyed. "I told you to pretend," Lucas snapped. Isabelle rolled her eyes. "It wasn't pretending. You know I care about you." "You were supposed to keep her calm," he barked. "Let her feel in control until the wedding. That was the plan. Then we'd sideline her." "Don't act like I forced you," she snapped. "You were the one who said she was too cold, too calculating. You wanted a soft woman. One who would smile and nod." "You weren't supposed to fall for me," he muttered. And then Isabelle, voice trembling, said the quiet truth out loud. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted it to be real." The video dropped anonymously on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon it had over 2.3 million views. By evening, every major financial site was dissecting it like it was a state secret. Lucas Bennett and Isabelle Monroe caught admitting to strategic betrayal. Calculated love? Former fiancé speaks out through allegory blog post. Bennett Group imploding, former partner's role comes to light. I watched from my kitchen counter, coffee in hand, phone blowing up with messages from reporters, former colleagues, and strangers who had once cheered for Lucas and now wanted to hang him. I didn't respond to any of them. Because this wasn't about attention. This was about truth. And it wasn't done yet. Predictably, Isabelle panicked. She tried to control the narrative. She went on a live morning show the next day, polished, poised, voice trembling just enough to seem sympathetic. And then came the dagger. "I've known Vivian since college," she said, smiling sweetly. "But not many people know about her past. She wasn't always this powerful. In fact, back then she lived off an older man. Some even said she was his mistress. She's always been strategic." I paused my screen. "Oh honey, you really thought you could spin this? Game on." I waited 48 hours. Then I uploaded my own post, not through my blog but through Crosstech Media's official page. Damian gave me full permission. Hell, he even poured the wine while I typed. The article was titled, "Strategy versus Slander. A Woman's Right to Reinvent Herself." It wasn't a rebuttal. It was a revelation. I told my story in my words. How I supported my dying father by taking consulting jobs with wealthy investors. How I was once mocked for wearing vintage suits to meetings I wasn't invited to. How I built an empire with Lucas and was discarded the moment I became inconvenient. I ended it with one sentence. If being powerful, ambitious, and unforgettable makes me a threat, then maybe more women should be dangerous. The post exploded. Women reposted it. TOs quoted it. Even Crosstech's competitors congratulated me. And Damian spoke. He appeared on a late-night business show, just a quiet guest segment about private equity trends. Nothing flashy. Until the host asked about the Bennett scandal. Damian took a breath and said, "Vivian Carter is the sharpest mind I've ever worked with. I watched her build, I watched her rise, and I watched her walk away from betrayal with her dignity intact. The rest of the world is just catching up to the fact that she was always the force behind the throne. And if anyone thinks they can shame a woman for surviving, they can come face me." And just like that, the world flipped. Lucas tried to recover. He released a statement saying, "deep regret," and "poor judgment." But the board wasn't having it. Stockholders weren't having it. Public opinion was done. Within a week, Lucas was removed from CEO position. Isabelle's contract was terminated. A federal audit was launched into financial misconduct. Investors began buying out shares, but not fast enough. Because you know who was waiting? Me. Under Evelyn Langley's name, I bought controlling interest through 3 separate trusts. And then, I walked into the Bennett Group boardroom like I had never left. They weren't expecting me. Lucas sat at the end of the table, pale, sweating through his shirt. Isabelle was beside him, lips pressed so tight they could have snapped. I dropped my folder on the table with a satisfying thud. "Surprised?" I asked, smiling sweetly. Lucas stood. "Vivian, this." "Sit." He did. Isabelle's voice trembled. "You don't have to do this." "No, I don't," I replied. "But I want to." I opened the folder and slid it across the table. A merger agreement between Bennett Group's media arm and a Crosstech subsidiary. My terms. My signatures. "Sign it," I said. "Or the board will." Lucas stared at it. "Why?" he whispered. "Why are you doing this?" I leaned forward. "You took everything from me. My trust. My reputation. My name." I smiled wider. "So now I'm taking everything you built with it." There's something profoundly satisfying about watching liars choke on their own words. Even more so when those words are printed on legal stationery. Lucas didn't sign the papers right away. Of course not. His ego couldn't bear the thought. And Isabelle? She looked like she was trying to summon an invisible PR team with sheer panic. I didn't rush them. Queens don't beg. I simply closed the folder, stood up, and adjusted the sleeves of my blazer. "You have 72 hours, I said, voice calm, controlled, lethal. "Then the board votes without you." Lucas stared at me like a man who'd just realized he was standing on thin ice, and that the woman he betrayed was the one holding the match to the sun. "Vivian, please," he said, rising to follow me. "Let's talk privately. This isn't who you are." I turned slowly. "You don't get to define who I am anymore." That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Isabelle. "Can we talk? Just us. Please." "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, debating. Then curiosity won. I told her to meet me at the rooftop garden of the Callaway, the same place she once helped plan my engagement party. Full circle, huh? She arrived late, wearing sunglasses and an oversized coat like she was avoiding paparazzi. As if anyone still cared. I was already seated, sipping a cocktail like nothing in the world could touch me. Because honestly, it couldn't. "Viv," she started, lowering the glasses. "You've made your point. You've won." "I wasn't playing a game," I replied. "You were. I just made sure you lost." Isabelle sighed, sitting across from me. "I messed up. I know that. I was jealous. I agree. But I didn't think. You didn't care," I cut in. "You wanted what I had. And when you couldn't build it yourself, you stole it." She flinched. "I'm not proud of it," she whispered. "But please. I'm ruined. My name's a joke. I can't walk into a firm without being laughed out of the room." I tilted my head. "You mean like I was after you slandered me on national television?" Her face crumpled. I leaned forward. "I have no intention of dragging this out, Isabelle. You'll receive an NDA and a severance package." Take it, sign it, disappear. And if I don't? I smiled. Then I'll do to your reputation what you tried to do to mine, but permanently. She didn't argue after that. Lucas, on the other hand, had not yet accepted his defeat. He summoned me for a private negotiation at the Bennett estate, the one we once toured together, imagining garden weddings and jazz quartets. That fantasy made me nauseous now. So I went. Because I knew what he'd try. He opened the door himself. No staff. No pretenses. Just a man stripped bare by failure and regret. "Vivian," he said, voice low, "please come in." I stepped into the foyer, memories brushing past me like ghosts. This place used to feel like a promise. Now it felt like a stage before the final act. He led me into the study where brandy waited in 2 crystal glasses. I didn't touch mine. "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm finished." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I was stupid. I know. But what we had, don't tell me it meant nothing to you." I met his eyes coldly. "It meant everything. Until it meant nothing." "Viv," I panicked. "You were so successful. So brilliant. I felt like a background character in your story. And then Isabelle. She made me feel in control. Lucas, you didn't want love. You wanted power. And when I stopped making you feel like a king, you replaced me with someone who would." He didn't deny it. Instead, he said the one thing I didn't expect. "I miss you." I paused. Just for a breath. Then I said, "You miss who I was when I made you feel important. Not who I am now." He reached for my hand. I pulled it away. "You made your choices," I said. "Now live with them." "But we could still." "No," I interrupted, rising. "You don't get a second chance just because the first one burned down." He stood as I reached the door. "If you leave now, it's really over." I turned to him with a smile sharp enough to slice ego. "It was over the moment you chose her over me." And then I walked out. The legal final blow. Within 48 hours, both Isabelle and Lucas signed the merger agreement. The cross-tech acquisition went through, clean, efficient, public. The press hailed it as a strategic pivot by the new leadership. Investors cheered. The board applauded. Me. I sat at the head of the boardroom table, the one I was never supposed to reach, and signed off on every single document with a pen engraved with my initials. Not VC, but Vivian Carter. My full name. My full power. That night I returned to Silver Hollow Bay. Damian was waiting on my porch holding 2 cups of coffee. "You did it," he said. I nodded. "I did." "You're not smiling." I sat beside him. I thought it would feel like victory. But it just feels like silence. He handed me the cup. "Sometimes silence is victory," he said. I looked at him, really looked. Strong. Steady. Loyal. "Were you ever going to tell me how you knew everything I was doing?" I asked. He smirked. "I didn't need to. You wanted me to know." I raised a brow. "And you let me?" He leaned back, gaze fixed on the sea. "You deserved your revenge. No. You deserve peace." We sat in silence for a while, the ocean murmuring its applause in the distance. And for the first time in a long time I felt something loosen in my chest. Not grief. Not rage. Just release. Thought it was over. The merger was done. Isabelle and Lucas were disgraced. My name, once dragged through the mud, had risen like a phoenix on fire. But peace, I've learned, is rarely permanent. Especially when your past isn't finished with you. It began with an email from Crosstech's legal team, a routine audit of Bennett Group's archives post-acquisition. They'd uncovered several flagged documents Lucas had tried to bury deep in the system. My name was on all of them. So was my signature. Only I never signed a single one. I called in the legal analyst who discovered them. Young, nervous, tapping her pen against the desk. "We found these in a hidden subfolder labeled Legacy Strategy. Each document transfers authority over key assets, under your name, to Lucas Bennett." I scanned the files. There was clean, convincing. Forge. He hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. He had tried to erase me financially. Legally. Historically. He forged my signature to take credit for the very systems I built. The forecasts, the investor strategies, even my proprietary algorithms. He filed them all as his, dated just before the engagement party. This wasn't just betrayal. This was identity theft. I sat alone in the boardroom of what used to be his company, staring at the city lights, gripping those papers. And for a brief, burning moment I considered revenge all over again. But no, this wouldn't be revenge. This would be justice. The last move. The quiet one. The fatal one. I requested a formal hearing with the board, the legal team, and our top investors. Lucas was required to attend. He arrived late as always, wearing a suit that no longer screamed wealth, just desperation trying to hide behind wool. He smiled at me like we were still old friends. Still ex-lovers. Still equals. That smile died the moment I began speaking. In reviewing Bennett Group's archival contracts, our team found multiple documents with my forged signature, authorizing strategic plans, technology licenses, and fund allocations to Lucas Bennett. These are not just forged. They are fraudulent. The room went dead silent. I dropped the file on the table. Here is the expert handwriting analysis. And here, I clicked a remote, is a metadata trail showing that Lucas accessed and edited these documents from his login 3 days before our engagement party. Lucas stood abruptly. Vivian. Don't. I raised a hand. Not here. Not now. He looked around, searching for support. No one moved. This could ruin me, he said quietly. I tilted my head. You already did that to yourself. The board voted unanimously to initiate legal proceedings. Lucas's remaining shares were seized pending investigation. His access was revoked. His title, honorary or otherwise, was stripped. All history of his contributions was flagged for correction. And the moment the room cleared and I was alone again, I exhaled. Not from satisfaction. From finality. It was done. 2 days later, Isabelle released a statement, not to the press but to me. A handwritten letter, delivered by courier. Vivian, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to disappear without being hunted. I'll be moving abroad. I'll sign whatever you need. I won't speak your name again. I know I don't deserve grace, but I'm asking for quiet. I didn't respond. But I sent back an NDA, a severance reduction, and a brief note. Disappear. Stay gone. And don't test me. She did. The last I heard from Lucas was a voicemail. I don't know what's left. I lost the company. Isabelle's gone. The house is on the market. And honestly, I don't even know who I am without all of it. I didn't reply. Because if you only exist through someone else's success, maybe you were never real to begin with. The turning point. Weeks passed. The press moved on. Investors moved in. Crosstech merged Bennett Group's media arm and tech assets under Carter Holdings, my new umbrella brand. And the world? They finally knew who I was. Not Lucas Bennett's brilliant fiancée. Not the woman scorned. But the woman who took it all back and then built something bigger. The letter. One morning I received a letter in the mail. Thick envelope. No return address. Inside was a printed article. The headline. The woman who rewrote her legacy. Vivian Carter's empire rises. No message. Just a paperclip holding a small folded note. In Damian's handwriting. Your move worked. Now the board wants you on the cover of Fortune. Don't forget to smile. D. I stood on the porch of my Silver Hollow cottage, the ocean whispering at my back. And I smiled. Not because I'd destroyed them, but because I'd survived them and created something so much stronger. Some women wear their crowns quietly. Others let the world place it on their head with applause. Me. I built mine from glass shards and wore it like armor. The official announcement was brief and clinical. Crosstech Ventures is proud to unveil Carter Holdings, a new generation private conglomerate, led by CEO Vivian Carter, focused on innovation, equity, and long-term global strategy. But behind that press release, there was me, the woman who had once been told she was too sharp, too much, too cold. Now the world applauded what they once feared. I didn't just inherit Bennett Group's scraps. I redesigned the entire architecture. I gutted the outdated structure, merged the media division into a cutting-edge storytelling platform, and repurposed the data arm into sustainable AI infrastructure. Investors lined up. Stocks surged. And most importantly, every one of my ideas had my name on it. No more ghostwriting for a man in a tailored suit. No more hiding behind Lucas Bennett's charm. This was my empire now. And the glass ceiling? Cracked, shattered, powdered into dust. 2 weeks later, I stepped onto the main stage at the Global Women in Leadership Summit. Spotlights followed me. Media buzzed. Every camera pointed in my direction. But I didn't feel nerves. I felt clarity. I wore a tailored navy pantsuit, clean, simple, unapologetic, with diamond studs that caught the light every time I moved. The host introduced me as the woman who turned betrayal into business brilliance. I took the mic, smiled, and said, I was once told that I was difficult, that I needed to soften myself to be loved, needed to shrink myself to be accepted. Today, I run a company with global stakes and partners in 5 continents. And I did it by refusing to become small. To every woman who's been overlooked, underestimated, or betrayed, stop waiting for them to give you a seat. Build the damn table. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, women lined up to thank me. Not for revenge, but for surviving with style. That night, I got an anonymous bouquet of lilies. No note. But I knew the sender. Lucas always sent lilies when he was too much of a coward to write real words. I didn't throw them away. I just moved them to the guest bathroom, where all unwanted things go. Because some memories don't deserve a front row seat in your life. Isabelle called once. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I see your face everywhere now. You did it, Viv. You became untouchable. Sorry. Really. I deleted it. Forgiveness wasn't in my business model. It was late on a Sunday when Damian showed up at my penthouse rooftop in Rosebridge. I had just finished an interview shoot, the skyline behind me still lit from the final frame. He wore his usual, no tie, sleeves rolled up, sharp eyes watching me like I was still a mystery. Didn't expect you here, I said. You should have. I smiled. Did the board send you to keep me grounded? No, he said, stepping closer. They sent me because they know I'm the only one who sees the real you, crown and all. We stood in silence, the city below humming with envy and electricity. You've done it, he said. You're the story now. I looked out over the edge. Yeah. And yet. He raised a brow. And yet. It doesn't feel complete. He nodded slowly. Because success can't hold your hand. Power can't protect your heart. I turned to him. And you can. I could, he said. But only if you let me. There was no pressure in his voice. No demand. Just quiet certainty. The kind that didn't try to outshine me. The kind that simply stood beside me. That night, as the stars blinked above a city that once tried to swallow me, I thought about everything I had become. Not just powerful. Not just untouchable. But free. And standing there with Damian beside me, I realized something. I didn't need him. But I wanted him. And for a woman who once had everything stolen, wanting without needing, that was the real crown. They say the most dangerous woman is the one who no longer needs validation. I say the most powerful woman is the one who knows she could destroy, but chooses to rise instead. 1 year later. Exactly 1 year after I walked out of that penthouse and left Lucas and Isabelle in bed with their lies, I stood on the balcony of my estate in Tuscany. Tuscany. Turns out betrayal makes for excellent global expansion. Carter Holdings had acquired 2 more subsidiaries, launched an AI-focused venture arm, and crossed the billion-dollar valuation mark last quarter. But that wasn't what made this morning special. What made it special was the stillness. No chaos. No headlines. No clawing to prove myself. Just birdsong, olive trees, and a breeze that carried no ghosts. I wrapped my robe tighter and sipped my coffee as sunlight poured across the terrace like gold dust. Peace wasn't loud, it was soft. It didn't announce itself. It simply arrived. And it was mine. Finally. I received one final letter from Lucas months ago. Handwritten, shaky, uncharacteristically honest. Vivian, I've lost everything. But losing you was the real end. You were never just my partner. You were my foundation. And I cracked it. If there's anything left to say, let it be this. I'm sorry. You deserve to be loved without strategy. I just wasn't man enough to do it. Well, I didn't write back. I didn't frame it. I didn't tear it up. I just placed it in the back of a drawer and closed it. Because not all closure needs confrontation. Sometimes, the real revenge is healing so fully they no longer have a place in your mind, let alone your future. Damian came to visit 2 days before my birthday. He brought no flowers, no speeches, just himself. And a bottle of red I liked. We walked the vineyard that afternoon in silence, sipping wine and brushing fingers like maybe we had all the time in the world. I used to think I'd never trust anyone again, I said quietly. He glanced at me. And now? I still don't, I said with a small grin. But you make it tempting. He chuckled. You always did like a challenge. We reached the top of the hill where the valley unfolded below us like a painting. He turned to me. What do you want now, Viv? Really? I took a long breath, letting the breeze carry my answer. I want laughter. I want long dinners. I want mornings where the only decision I have to make is which book to read. He smiled. And me? I looked at him. The man who never tried to control me, never tried to fix me, just stood still while I rebuilt myself. You. I said, threading my fingers through his. You get to stay, if you can handle a queen who no longer needs saving. He squeezed my hand. Darling, he said, I wouldn't dare try. On my birthday I threw a dinner under the stars. Close friends. Good wine. No press. I wore a champagne silk dress, loose waves in my hair and bare feet in the grass. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about quarterly reports. I didn't mention Lucas. Not once. Instead, I laughed until my stomach hurt. I slow danced with Damian in the candlelight while music drifted through the vineyard. And when he kissed me, it wasn't electric. It was steady, warm, certain. The kind of love that doesn't burn you down. The kind that makes you bloom. Later that night, I sat alone on the terrace as everyone else slept. I looked up at the sky. Vast, clear, unapologetic. And I whispered to the wind, I'm not the woman they tried to break. I'm the woman who became everything they never saw coming. The end.